Hey VC, what's up? It's me, yours truly. I am back to post a quick response video to my last thread, which was the 2 questions and the 1 request thread. There's about 3 or 4 of you who already done some video responses, which were very cool. I had a chance to check those out, and here's just kind of my 2 cents on it. So let me start off with the 1 request out of the thread, which is, I'm sure you guys noticed, this very hideous bright thing that I have on. But Derek, you asked me where did it come from. This is the shirt that sparked that request/question within the thread of do the response wearing the ugliest or craziest shirt that you have in your wardrobe. I was going through my closet the other day and I saw this shirt hanging up in the back, and I just totally forgot that I had it. The shirt that's been nicknamed by some friends of mine as the Wow shirt. And the story behind this is I went to TJ Maxx buying some stuff from a new place I got, walked by the men's clothing, saw this shirt hanging up, and the first thing I said was, that's the ugliest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. I forgot something, I walked back, came back around it again, I saw it again and thought, that is the ugliest thing I've ever seen, which of course makes it kind of attractive. So I went over and looked at it, and I was like, it's only $12. That shirt is so ugly, I'll figure out something to do with it. So I went ahead and bought it. So it's only like $12 or $13. And what I figured I would do is, there's a pretty popular group called Dr. Vegas that travels around the Midwest. I don't know how far they get out on the coast or anything, but it's kind of one of those local type shows that everyone knows about, and they do a lot of cover stuff, a lot of just really popular music from the really kind of the 70s, 80s, and 90s. They do everything. So when they used to go to Columbia, one of the things that everyone did there is they would always do like a 70s dress-up thing for their shows. So when you went there, there was always people with, you know, old clothes from like the Salvation Army or something, unbuttoned all the way down to their stomach and wearing fake gold jewelry, and they'd have on fake afros and everything. So it was always like a really, really good time. So that's what I ended up using this shirt for, is every time Dr. Vegas came, I would wear this and have it, you know, unbuttoned, and I had these white shoes I would wear, and I had some fake jewelry, and it was kind of my 70s psychedelic, you know, whatever shirt. So only time I've ever worn it, but I don't know, it's always a good conversation piece, because I don't know how well it's going to show up on camera, but it is freaking bright. So that's the story behind the shirt. So I'm going to wear it while I'm doing the 2 response questions, and let me jump into those. Number 1, share some of your favorite songs or songs that you feel are really 2 different songs put together, which I understand is kind of a subjective thing. You probably won't think some of the ones I'm going to show are, but let me just go through and show the ones that popped out to me. First one here is off the CD, which is the song Superman's Dead by Our Lady Peace. I've always felt like the first part of that song, and then when it goes into the very end, where they go into the Doesn't Anybody Ever Know, if you know the song that I'm talking about, that always seemed like 2 different songs to me. And I mean, even way back when, I used to always think, why didn't they make that 2 different songs? Because the first one was great, the second part was great. They could have had 2 totally different hits there. So that's one that kind of jumps out to me, which again probably doesn't sound like 2 different songs to most people. Kind of cheating on this one, Conan the Barbarian, because technically the song is actually kind of labeled as 2 songs, because the track is Riddle of Steel / Riders of Doom, which indicates kind of 2 different pieces, but it's played and tracked as 1 song. So again, just kind of one that starts off very soft, basic medieval stuff, and then gets into like just a very heavy drop at the end. I'd go here with Over the Hills and Far Away by Led Zeppelin. Kind of starts off with the soft, you know, guitar picking, and then gets into the kind of Led Zeppelin rock at the end. Alexander the Great by Iron Maiden, Somewhere in Time. Kind of the same thing. It starts off with a slow kind of medieval type of feel to it, and then goes into the more traditional Maiden gallop type thing. I need to go back and put that CD back in. There's a lot of skipping going on in there. Next here, Franz Ferdinand. And again, this is probably one that most of you probably won't think sounds like two different songs, but I think the intro into Take Me Out, and then of course the way they do that smooth transition into the slower groove part, I think that's awesome. But so I wouldn't want to change it for anything. But technically, I really hear two very distinct tracks in that intro and the second part of the song, or second two-thirds of the song. Also want to go with Live and Let Die. Same thing, kind of the soft flow to that song, and the very up-tempo parts could easily be turned into two different songs. And this one I would actually say could be turned into three different songs, and that is Judy Blue Eyes by Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young. I think there's the first part, and then there's that really cool harmony part they go into, and then the part at the end everybody tends to know about. But I think really that's almost three different songs put together. A lot of which is there's a lot stolen from gospel in that song too. Matter of fact, there's a number of gospel songs I can clearly hear where sounds like almost darn near sampled note for note. But anyway, kind of another one I'm cheating a little bit here, which is Foreplay and a Long Time. Again, it's actually written here with the slash, but it tracks as one song. By Boston. Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen. Again, you have his soft singing at the beginning, then you have the operatic type stuff they do, then you have the heavier Queen that kicks in, so technically you could have three different songs within that one. I think Metallica, there's a bunch you can choose from them. You know, those guys are so musically orientated, more so than I think a lot of metal bands that's where we got a lot of those 8 and 9 minute songs they used to do, because yeah, they could do the speed thing, the thrash thing, but there was just always these moments in time where they had to bring out just kind of that very soft musical thing that they would put in between songs and all of that. So, I mean, you could find that in Master of Puppets and all kinds of songs. But the one I thought was pretty distinct was Fight Fire with Fire, so I chose that one. I mean, that song starts off like it's actually going to be romantic, and then all of a sudden it just blows your head apart. So definitely two different songs there. And then the song that sparked that thread question, Layla, which of course you know from the start and then going to the piano solo, very, very distinct tracks. And last but not least, kind of saved this to honor her at the very end, which is Donna Summers. We just lost her recently, which again, that's what the big patch is here. On the days that artist dies, I always go in and just kind of write a little note about where I was, what I was thinking, and all that good stuff, so kind of have it to reflect on in the future. But the song Last Dance, I think the same thing, intro, very slow R&B, then it turns into just the fabulous disco hit that it was. So those are the ones I picked that, like I said, were 2 or 3 songs I can kind of hear being put together. The next question, some of your favorite bands or artists that were a result of a band breaking up or a band coming together. And again, I tried to pick some that there was a little bit of distinction between the groups they left, and not just where they left and went somewhere else and it stayed great. Like, for example, Steve Perry is one of my favorite vocalists of all time. So he was incredible with Journey. He had great stuff as a solo artist, but I didn't see like this huge drop-off or pickup because he went solo. It was just still the wonderful voice of Steve Perry. So I did pick him. So that's kind of the standard I was holding myself to narrow it down some. So of course, you got to go with Michael Jackson. I mean, yeah, the Jackson 5 was fantastic, but nothing can touch what he did his solo career. Curtis Mayfield and Left Impressions, I think the same thing. His solo career, I think, stomped as good as the Impressions were. His solo career, I think, was a heck of a lot better. This is one I'm sure a lot of you will disagree with me on, but it's being the huge 80s fan I am. When Phil Collins and Peter Gabriel both left Genesis and did their solo careers, for me it's hard to say that was not a huge step up. I love Genesis, but I love the 80s more. And of course these guys were major forces in the 80s. The faces were great, but at the same time, I think Rod Stewart's solo career overall was a much, much better body of work. Again, me being a child of the 80s, how can you not love Rod and be a fan of the 80s? Same thing with this particular gentleman here. The band and group he was in made some of the greatest music of all time, but then what he did as a solo career, Lionel Richie, I mean, just does not get any better than that. You know, Lionel and Bruce Springsteen are two of the best songwriters of all time. But I always say it too, it's kind of sad that the timing of this record, because as big as it was in the 80s, you always have to keep in mind, this came out like a few months after Michael Jackson's Thriller came out. So as big as this got, you can only imagine trying to get your album to fight the charts with Thriller in its first 1 or 2 years. I mean, it's just, I don't know if it's good timing or bad timing. Here's another one, of course, Nirvana. Didn't break up the way we would like for it to have broken up, but still, we got Foo Fighters out of that, which is still not a step up, but I also think it's you have to kind of acknowledge how incredible a band came from Nirvana dissolving. And of course, Hawkeye and giving us Lemmy and Motorhead. I think that was definitely a step up, as good as Hawkeye was. Here's another one too, which is really kind of on par. It wasn't a step up, but I just kind of felt like you had to acknowledge it. Ozzy Osbourne leaving Black Sabbath. Black Sabbath, in my mind, of course, the godfathers of metal, and Ozzy's solo career just took off on the same level, in my mind. So, not better, but again, had to acknowledge it. Runaway Split, Joan Jett comes about. You could probably throw Lita Ford in there, but I think I'm probably a little bit bigger fan of Joan Jett. So that's one. And probably my two number ones would be Mustaine leaving Metallica. I mean, Megadeth comes about because of that. So that's definitely one of my favorites. But I think the best of all time, which was already a great band, and this was already a great solo artist, and they came together to go to an even higher level, it was Van Hagar. Again, I don't care what anyone says, this right here, 5150, is the greatest album Van Halen ever put out. There's nothing more musical than this thing, and I think, you know, Hagar had a great solo career coming off of VOA, and of course Roth. I mean, enough said, that's Roth. But still, when these two came together, oh my goodness, incredible. So, anyway, BC, those are my answers for those two thread questions, and here's the ugly shirt I'm wearing to answer those. Hope you guys enjoyed the thread, and as always, we will talk to you soon. All right, take care, guys.